The Friday Rugby Preview with Stuart Cameron.
Hello and welcome to the Friday Rugby Preview on Rugby Radio, your one-stop guide to the club game in the Borders. And in the show, as always, I'm joined by Dale Clancy, and we'll start with a brief recap of last weekend. In the Premiership, Hawick won at Edinburgh Accies. Kelso bounced back to form with a home win against Glasgow Hawks, but defeats for Selkirk and Jed Forest at the bottom end of the table against Mar away and Musselburgh at home.
Yeah, I think, Hawick an impressive victory on the road at Rayburn Place against Edinburgh Accies, so they'll be cock a hoop that they've been able to get back up towards the top of that division, back to winning ways. But it's a huge weekend coming up for them in the Premiership, and Kelso again, after on the back of a really heavy defeat, showed a good character as well, beating a team that potentially could be there or thereabouts in the league, in terms of round about the same standing. So a good win for them. But the two defeats that the Border side suffered are slightly different. Jed Forest not able to make home advantage count against Musselburgh, so they've been able to steal a march on them in the league standings. And Mar, able to sweep aside Selkirk, but Selkirk again have shown the best and worst qualities that they have this season, being able to score tries, accumulate points, but they've obviously been able to show that they're a little bit leaky in defence as well. In
National 1, a heavy defeat for Melrose at home to Ayr, but a win for Gala against Biggar.
Yeah, big win for Gala. We spoke about that game last week in terms of how unfamiliar it is to have this game towards the foot of the table, and Gala were able to make home advantage count and add more woe to Biggar's pretty dismal start to National 1. But Melrose just looked second best against Ayr, and obviously the highlights that I've seen, Ayr again putting down a big marker against a close rival and getting a really big victory on the road against Melrose.
Well, National 2 saw Peebles stretch their unbeaten run to 4 games out of 4 with a good win at Falkirk, while Berwick picked up 2 points at table toppers Lasswade.
Yeah, they've had a really good start to the season, and I think the weekend's game past was the biggest test for them. Falkirk away from home. Falkirk have shown really good form. A big win at Scremerston as well. So, it was a big test that Peebles passed. But Berwick again, being able to put in a good performance away from home against Lasswade. And, Lasswade are obviously top of the tree, and Berwick only got beaten by 5 points, but able to get that losing bonus point and try bonus as well. So 2 points away from home is a good return for Berwick.
Well, this week all roads lead to Mansfield Park. It's the game everyone wants to see. Hawick, unbeaten at home since October 2019, taking on Curry, whose lowest score this season has been 46, as they sit proudly at the top of the Premiership table. Let's hear from Greens head coach Matty Douglas.
Games don't get much tougher than this on Saturday. I think Curry have started the season really well, going 4 for 4 and maximum points. It's, confidence will be high within their camp, and look, they'll be coming to Mansfield on Saturday looking to turn us over and try and play a certain brand of rugby to put us under pressure. But look, for us, we've trained really well this week, coming off the back of a win at Accies on Saturday. It was a workmanlike performance up at Rayburn Place. At times we played some exceptional stuff, and it was just maybe we didn't take as many opportunities as we should have. But the little things, we fixed them at training this week, and the boys are excited for this on Saturday. We'll be looking for nothing but a win to set us up into these last few games of the first round of fixtures. So yeah, look, one we're definitely excited for.
Matty Douglas, so this one is intriguing. Hawick's proud unbeaten record on the line against Curry, who are scoring tries for fun this season. Last week they ran up 41 points before half-time against Heriot's Blues, who were in second place. Curry
are in irresistible form at the moment, started really strongly, just look that little bit better and more consistent than any other team. And Hawick have already been defeated. They now look vulnerable in terms of, they're not that irresistible force that they were last year. Curry will have something to prove, but that's the naivety of me is betting against Hawick at home. This is what clubs have been crying out for years, is, games that matter, big clubs, traditional clubs, hammering it out at the beginning of the campaign to try and win titles. And, at the moment, for the last few years, there's been no two bigger clubs than Hawick and Curry. Early in the season, Curry after an unbelievable start, Hawick maybe licking their wounds after the Mar defeat. It makes it so intriguing in terms of where we're going to be talking come, March, February time, where these two teams are going to be.
Well, you can tune in to live radio coverage, including full commentary of Hawick versus Curry via the websites at either bordersrugby.net or rugbyradio.co.uk. We're on air at 2:30 tomorrow, and we go all the way through until 5 o'clock. Well, Kelso are coming off the back of a win against Glasgow Hawks last weekend, and that would have given them a great deal of confidence following their big loss at Hawick. This week, they go and face Mar at Fullerton Park, and the thoughts now of Kelso Director of Rugby, Neil Hinnigan.
It's our longest trip of the year, and we're now looking forward to that after a good win on Saturday against Hawks. It's a much improved performance for us, and obviously some of the work we've been doing on defence paid off last week, and it was around 65 minutes in the game till we conceded any points, and we're going to need a lot of that for Saturday up at Fullerton, as the home side like to put on a lot of points up there, so we've got to be wary of that. They obviously took Hawick apart a few weeks ago, and then Hawick obviously gave us a hard time, so all the warning signs are there. This could be a hard day, but it'd be a fantastic to get a win. Obviously it would be a real shot in the arm, but first and foremost we've got to get a performance. We've got to get a lot of the detail right, starting with defence, set piece, and obviously putting phases together to put pressure on Mar, because their home form is phenomenal, and it'll take a big shift from the boys, but it's one they're looking forward to. On team selection, Grant Shields misses out this week. He's at a wedding, so Angus McGregor gets his first start. He's had a little bit of game time away with Watsonians last week up at Dundee, so he'll be ready for that. We're missing James Glendinning this week. He's also unavailable. And we've got a couple of knocks as well, which we're nursing, so we'll see how things go.
Neil Hinnigan. Well, Selkirk lost last week against Mar. Mar have already beaten two Borders teams. Obviously, they took the scalp of Hawick as well, and they'll be wanting Kelso to add to that list.
Yeah, they'll have the heads of Hawick and Selkirk up in their club rooms, and they'll be wanting Kelso to add to that as well. And it's interesting because Mar welcome all the Border teams pretty early on. Obviously got 2 out of 2, so 2 out of 3 so far. They've got the third visit in this weekend. So it could make Mar's campaign a little bit false at this time, because coming to the Borders is not easy for Mar. It's not easy for many teams. But I think Kelso will. They're almost, yes, they've crossed paths over the last few years when they were playing lower down the divisions. This will be a new territory for Kelso, and I think they've got the squad that go in relatively unfazed. They'll have learnt a lot of lessons from the Hawick defeat when they went into a Premiership campaign, against a close rival. It's something that they've not done for a couple of decades. So Kelso will be going in here with, I think, no fear. I think Mar do start as favourites, but I think the game will be a lot tighter than last weekend's fixture against Selkirk.
Selkirk back at home again. They play Musselburgh, who got over the line at Jed last week, and the three of them, along with Glasgow Hawks, currently in the bottom four, and Musselburgh will know that if they can win at Philiphaugh, then they'll start to put some light between them and those below them, knowing that they've got Jed and Selkirk at home at Stony Hill in the second part of the season. Let's hear from Selkirk coach Sesh Henderson.
Another big game against Musselburgh at home. From last week's game, we're really pleased with the 4 tries we scored. Could have potentially scored a couple more, because we've had a lot of possession deep inside our 22 a couple of times, but never came away with points. Defensively, certain aspects we were better. Still, we gave them a couple of scores where I thought, we could have been even closer to a win, or even getting at least 2 points out of the game. However, this week's game is now the most important game of the season for us. Hopefully get a couple of players back, strengthen the squad further, and put a performance in that warrants taking points, and I hope it's a 4 or a 5, but we understand it's going to be a strong game. They'll be fighting as well. Good win for them away from home at Jed, and they're away on the road again this week to us, so looking forward to it. Hopefully we put a solid performance in attack and defence and come away with a W.
Sesh Henderson. Now, the last time Selkirk played at Philiphaugh, they put 65 points on Jed Forest, which is a big improvement to their home record last season. They'll certainly be wanting to stamp their authority on this one early on.
They definitely will. I just think in regards to this fixture, this is one that Jed Forest will be looking at with a lot of intrigue. The game itself was one of the turning points for Musselburgh last year, and for a lot of those players that are still in that camp will remember that, and they'll go into this game with a little less anxiety than they perhaps did at this stage last season when they were playing this fixture. They were in a relegation battle. They know that they can win at Philiphaugh, so they're going to be going into this game with a relative bit of confidence, and a win for Musselburgh gives them a nice bit of comfort between them and the teams around them. I also say the same for Selkirk, because they have been able to score tries. They've been conceding points as well, but if they're able to pick up the victory, I think the biggest losers in it is Jed Forest, because those two teams will then have a relatively good, comfortable cushion between them and Jed Forest if they're not able to pick up a victory this weekend.
Also in the Premiership, Jed Forest face Heriots Blues away from home at Golden Acre. They've slipped to 4th now, and they've got a negative points difference, which is very intriguing. Here's David Grieve from the Jed Forest coaching setup.
Musselburgh started the game really strong. They got into a 14-point lead. And if it wasn't for a really good defending on their own try line, it could have been a whole lot worse. But just before half-time, we finally had a chance to score and got a converted try, and it was 14-7 at half-time. Second half started, Musselburgh started strong again. They scored straight away. They got another score as well, so it wasn't looking good for us, but credit to our boys, they got stuck in. Finally, after about an hour, we got our way back into the game, and finally, the last 10 minutes, we got in the lead. Our boys threw absolutely everything at it. Unfortunately, after that, Musselburgh scored again. After that, the kind of game was over. Just to rub salt in the wounds, they got a penalty at the end of the game as well, which took the score over 7 points. So instead of getting 2 losing points, we only got 1. But in the plus point, for the second week in a row, we've scored over 30 points. But obviously, our defence has got to be a whole lot better. This week, we're up to Heriots. Again, we just have to stay positive and go out there and have a go.
David Grieve. Now, Jed need to start picking up some wins. Just 2 try bonuses to show so far.
Yeah, and I'm just having a little quick look at the fixtures as well. I know it's a long way down the line, but if you think about Jed Forest going into towards the tail end of a campaign, if they're not able to pick up some victories, they've got a difficult run in towards the end of the Premiership. So I think that this weekend, against Heriots, Jed Forest will be happy it's against a team like Heriots who like to throw the ball around, but it's again another difficult game away from home to try and keep pressure on the teams round about you at the foot of that table.
Well, in the other match in the Premiership, it's Glasgow Hawks at home to Edinburgh Accies. Let's move on to National 1 then. Melrose and Gala had contrasting results last weekend. I'll be surprised if we don't see a different Melrose turn up at the Green Yards tomorrow, while Gala will be looking for revenge following last season's implosion where they leaked over 60 points. Let's hear from both parties. Ewan Swinton, Director of Rugby from Gala, and first head coach of Melrose, Ian Chisholm.
Last weekend was obviously really disappointing for us. Ayr were better than us physically. They brought a lot more energy than us, and on reflection of the week, I'd probably set us up not to lose rather than go out to win, and that's just not what I'm and Melrose Rugby Club are about. Really chuffed with how the boys have reacted to what we've been saying. They've taken real responsibility for it, and going into this weekend, you kind of get up for Melrose Gala and you shouldn't be on the pitch. Look, we're better prepared this weekend, and our team selection's probably maybe a bit more consistent from when we've been successful in the past. We welcome Stuart Hutchison back, welcome Dougie Crawford back. The real positives from the weekend were Lachlan Gaddy and Kieran Clark. Thought they really stepped up in that last 20 when we really needed someone to go, you know what, this is what we're doing, give me the ball, I'm going to go. And we want to move the ball. From the weekend, we only tipped once. We didn't hook out the back a single time, and you compare it to Biggar where we tipped nearly 25 times and we hooked out the back almost 15 times, and you can't go from one game to the other. And when we feel a bit of pressure and we feel like we need to get him in an arm wrestle, we go, you know what, I'm just going to run straight into you guys, I'm going to fight you, and that's what Ayr are good at. But look, this weekend's the biggest game of the season for us. We want to make sure on our home patch that we've got a really good performance that shows that last weekend was a blip, and that shows that we have made amends to what we're doing.
Ian Chisholm, the Melrose coach, is, in his own words, passionate about attack, and I think that comes through in the way that his backline plays. They have fantastic halfbacks, imports as well to help them out, but local guys such as Rolly Brett and Hamish Weir are more than capable of finishing off the flowing moves that the Melrose side like to produce on their pitch at the Green Yards. They have a strong pack, and we will need to challenge them very much, try to get on top of them to put a halt to the efforts out wide. We are strong and pacey ourselves in the backs. We have some fast improving players in amongst our side. Dan Nicholson, who has been out of the first 15 for a couple of years, is coming back to a very strong game, scored an excellent try last week. Guys like that will be very influential for us, but more pace coming in through the second 15. They scored some great tries last Saturday. We have a lot to bring to Melrose to challenge the excellence that they have, so hopefully we'll see a fantastic fantastic game on Saturday. It'll be extremely hard fought. These guys know each other well, and they are certainly up for a rousing battle. So I think that the game should certainly be not one for the faint-hearted, but hopefully there will be lots of running rugby on show and the right team will win. From my perspective, I hope that's Gala, but we know we face a real challenge and we're looking forward to it.
Ewan Swinton, Director of Rugby at Gala. Before that, Ian Chisholm, Melrose Head Coach. Well, that's our first border derby since 2 weeks ago when we had 168 points across 2 games. Are we going to see another tri-fest or back to the old war of attrition associated with so many border derbies in the past?
No, I think that there will be points in it, especially National 1. Defences are not as robust as sometimes are in the Premiership. But, both these teams have started to kind of show a little bit more of an upward curve in terms of their form. Yes, Melrose got defeated against Ayr last weekend, but Ayr have been really, really impressive at the start of this season. Gala obviously started their campaign with a really difficult game against Watsonians, a big defeat. But from then, there's been a really positive reaction. So I think it's going to be an interesting fixture. You would say Melrose perhaps start at marginal favourites. I think the return of Stuart Hutchison's a big one for Melrose as well. He's a really good playmaker for them. And on that pitch as well, it doesn't really matter what the weather's like as long as it's not a monsoon and it washes all the rubber away. It should be a good paddock for some rugby. So, a really historic game in terms of Borders rugby, but, in different landscapes in terms of the National 1. But for one of these teams, it allows them to cut the strings of their nearest rivals.
National 2 sees Peebles and Lasswade going head-to-head at the Kites, 4 wins each, and let's see what Peebles boss Graham Patterson has to say about this one.
We're delighted with the result from last weekend against Falkirk away. Probably not a lot of folk believed that we could go up there and get a victory, certainly in the manner that we came away with. But that's what I said to the guys about self-belief, and they put in that performance which gave them the justified result. Winning away from home at Falkirk is pretty impressive, bearing in mind their home record over the last couple of seasons has been outstanding. So we're looking ahead to Lasswade this week, so the last 2 unbeaten sides in the league as we stand now, so something's got to give from one of the sides. We're confident we're at home. We'll really take it to them both up front and in behind the scrum, and we have a defensive system that is working. It'll be tested, I'm pretty sure, directly by the Lasswade. I've looked at their video from the Aberdeen Grammar game last weekend and picked up a couple of areas that we can highlight to our players and to watch out for in terms of threats from them. But we're looking really towards our own performance and putting that in, week out, and that's the benchmark for us. And if we can improve incrementally, then we're looking towards achieving our targets for those initial targets set. Murdo Anderson, our captain, returns. Ewan Jackson's back after a few weeks off with a wee niggle. And it was good to see David Collins back after a long term. He played a bit of time on the Friday night for the Reds, and then he was on the bench and got 10 or 12 minutes. So he'll be looking to force his way back into that squad as well. A few guys certainly put their hand up after the Reds games. Notable mentions in Tom Calgie and Buster Davison, who looked really quite sharp and dangerous on the ball in the back line, so that's going to create a bit of competition for places. So all in all, a really positive buzz around the club at the moment with regards to results and performance. Numbers are good at training, so we're getting that competition element there as well, which is ideal for the coaches, and having that good problem that we know we're having to really think about selection. This year I've been fortunate that it has been a fairly settled side with maybe only 1 or 2 kind of changes week to week, which really does breed, a consistent performance and relationships amongst the players, and that's why we feel we're improving, given those consistent results, which thankfully are consistent in the positive sense of the word, and we'll look forward to maintaining that on Saturday.
Graham Patterson. Now both teams unbeaten, but Lasswade have won all theirs against 4 teams in the bottom half of the table, so that's quite significant, and certainly this is their biggest challenge.
I said a few weeks ago about their home form, and this is the sort of game that can play into the mindset of people's players, that it perhaps drops their standard a little bit, but that's the beauty of Graham Patterson being back at Peebles now. I just don't think he allows those standards to drop. He's one of those coaches that is still got a little bit of an older school mentality in terms of standards and application, but he's got new fresh ideas. He's a good hybrid coach. I think he's a terrific coach. And in terms of Peebles changing from Chisholm last year, I don't think he could have picked a better replacement, so Peebles are fortunate to have him. He's doing a great job there as well. But this is a good test for them because they're, on paper, they're nearest rivals in the table. It was a real marker last week, a victory on the road to Falkirk. And if Peebles do have aspirations of getting out of this division and going up a notch, then this is the game they need to win.
Also tomorrow, Berwick are back at home against Newton Stuart, who are one place above them in the table, and Berwick still without a win. Here's their forwards coach, Paul Pringle.
So last week we travelled up to Lasswade with a fairly full-strength squad in a game which we knew was going to be a relatively tight affair. I think the last few meetings with us, there's only been 1 or 2 points either way in each occasion. We started really well in the game. We were very competitive against what was a fairly well-drilled outfit. Forwards were pretty much on top of set pieces and lineouts and scrums. Funnily enough, what probably cost us the game in the end was the amount of penalties we gave around the tackle height. This week, though, I would definitely say the consistency was there. You know, we had a chat with the referee before. He set his marker as to how it was going to be officiated, and and that's the way he applied it throughout the game. So the blame's definitely on us there, and that's something that we've worked on this week at training, and we'd hope to make sure as we move forward into the Newton Stuart game this weekend that that we get that right and we limit the penalty count, which just gives teams easy opportunities against us. So again, this week we're pretty much largely unchanged from last week. Late fitness test on Jordan Jackson, but apart from that, we probably the same 19 which will be involved. Big day at the club. We have a fun day this weekend, so just really getting people at the club, barbecues, bouncy castles, all the usual stuff. So the lads will be really keen to put on a show, and main thing is we want to get that first win on the board. We've been picking up bonus points for losing bonus points or tries, but we need to get that W now and then start moving forward.
Paul Pringle, surely a home win for Berwick this time round after getting so close last week?
Yeah, a great performance against Lasswade last week. Berwick are one of those teams that if they can consolidate their home form, Scremerston's a really difficult place to travel for any team, and I think they're comfortable in this division if they're able to pick up home results. And you can see away from home against one of the teams at the top of the pile, they're able to pick up 2 points on the road. So Berwick are in a really good spot, I think. They were obviously able to keep their highest position possible at the end of last year, avoiding relegation, and they look like they're going through that phase where they're able to try and consolidate and maintain that. So the way that Newton Stuart have started the season, you would aim for a Berwick victory.
Into the East Leagues now, and newly promoted Langham lost last weekend at unbeaten Haddington, but they played Linlithgow at Milntown, and for the first time this season we hear from Langham head coach Craig Hislop.
We're hopeful of having a few guys back in the squad, although injury-wise we lost Eddie Turner, looking like he'll be out for a number of weeks. And that follows injuries to Ewan Patterson, and also coming into the season we lost Chris Tate, our hooker. So a lot of young guys joining the squad this season. Fairly encouraging. Ended the game last week at Haddington, where we started a bit quicker. It might have been a different outcome at the end. We'll see what Linlithgow bring down is at Milton, but we're obviously always quite strong at home.
Craig Hislop, good to hear from him, and quite a few injuries there, but Langham back at home and blooding some youngsters. Always good to hear that.
It's good to see there's still an appetite for rugby at Langham. Obviously went through a couple of years where almost had a bit of success last year, and it was a huge last few years in terms of their anniversary as well. So difficult to swallow that defeat. It's two that they've suffered so far this season, but they get another chance this weekend to try and make amends.
In Division 2, Hawick Harlequins at home to Duns and Hawick Lindeen away at Pennycook. Hawick Quins versus Duns then, the basement battle.
Yeah, obviously both sides on the end of really heavy defeats last week, and that form almost goes out the window because it's a bit of a border derby. So perhaps both sides not showing the form that they would like to, but they both get a chance to try and make amends for that. It was really, really heavy defeats that both teams suffered. So this sort of fixture allows both teams the chance to try and wipe that away and then get a bit of momentum back into their campaign.
Hoyk Lundin are faring better from our 3 local teams in the league. They've had 2 wins out of 4 this week at Pennycook, who are unbeaten. And here's Lundin's Gary Alexander.
Lundin were off to Pennycook this week. This is our 3rd out of 4 consecutive away league games, which is a bit unusual. Pennycook are going well. They've won 4 from 4. They've got 4 try bonus points, so sitting top of the league. For ourselves, we lost 33-12 at Christoffin last week after having won 2 in a row. We did have quite a few boys missing. There was a stag do. Captain Tom Huggin was missing, and 5 for the backs were away, so it was a much changed team. On the upside, youngsters, 18-year-olds, Aidan Middlemiss and Owen Mackey got their debuts, so it's great to see the young boys coming through. Bodes well for the future. Fingers crossed we'll give Pennycook a good old go this Saturday.
Gary Alexander. Now, Lundin currently ranked 10th team in the Borders, which will make them pretty satisfied, I'd imagine, with Quinns, Duns, Galloway and Earlston all below them. They've had
probably a more fruitful campaign than the other teams in East 2. You know, Quinns and Duns have found things really, really difficult so far. Obviously, Lundin came off the back of a defeat last weekend. Good to see that they're doing better than the other Border teams, and the results on the whole have been more positive.
Well, finally into East League 3 in a derby at the Hoch between Earlston and Galloway M, with home advantage and 3 wins from 3 against a team with no wins out of 3. So you'd fancy Earlston to make it 4 in a row, but as Earlston head coach Cammy Hill says, it's a derby and anything can happen.
After no game last week, we're really looking forward to getting back into some league rugby. We also had 7 or 8 lads away helping other clubs throughout the Borders last weekend, just to help get fixtures played and for the lads to get some game time as well. And it'll also give us some time for lads carrying any knocks over the last few weeks to fully recover, which is great. Looking at this fixture, I've told the lads all league positions and form go out the window when it comes down to a local derby. We know what Gala are going to bring to the game. They've got a big pack of foots. We've got some clever players in the back line. But as I said, we just need to focus on our game plan. If we can execute that well, I'm confident that we'll come away with the result we're looking for. Team-wise this week, as for the first few matches, the pack remains the same, so ecstatic about that. Into the back line, we're missing Chris Rowley, Jay Fender and Aaron Patterson due to work and holidays. But we do have Stevie Denham back available, which is good, and we're also bringing in some experience with David Cassidy from Selkirk, who's a great addition to any team. He'll bring the best out in some of the younger lads we've got, so that's going to be really good. Overall, I'm really looking forward to this weekend's game and hoping we can come away with another one.
Cammy Hill. So, Earlston versus Galloway M used to be for the Jewson Cup. I don't even know if that's still going, but thoughts on this one?
Yeah, you know, it's good to see Earlston. We spoke at length about them last year, and it's the same conversation, but sometimes it's a different club in terms of personnel and towards the lower end of the division, what you can offer players in terms of socially. But they've had a great start. You know, this time last year we'd probably be talking about this fixture the other way round, so it's nice that Earlston have a little bit of time in the spotlight, and they'll go into this derby with a lot of confidence. And, you know, Jewson Cup or not, they're not separated by many miles as the crow flies, so Earlston will be really hoping that they can get the bragging rights in the Borders, but I'm sure Galloway M will be up for the occasion as well, and people want to try and get their first win under their belt.
Well, we're live on Rugby Radio from 2:30 tomorrow, coming to you direct from Mansfield Park for Hoyk against Curry. We'll have television highlights of that game and also Melrose versus Gala over the weekend on Borders Rugby TV. And don't forget to check out our new Scottish Club Rugby podcast, which is out now from your favourite store. There's the new website at rugbyradio.co.uk as well, and of course our main site for everything to do with Borders Rugby at bordersrugby.net. Do check it all out, and we'll see you on Rugby Radio tomorrow at 2:30. But for now, from Dale and me, a very good night.